Hi, good morning and welcome to the AM News with me, Mapita Sibidi. In our first story, President Akufo-Addo says the decision of the Supreme Court on the suggestion that Parliament is beyond the scrutiny of the Supreme Court is to suggest that Parliament is a law unto itself. Former President Mahama and the NDC minority in Parliament have rejected the ruling of the court affirming the voting right of a deputy speaker while presiding. President Akufo-Addo told the media in Dubai the ruling of the court must be respected.
I couldn't understand what all of this furor judicial interference in the work of Parliament. I'm not quite sure that the people who are saying this have actually taken the time to read the Constitution of our country. It says so in black and white. The legislative power of Parliament that is vested of the state, which is vested in Parliament, is subject to the provisions of the Constitution. All organs of the Ghanaian state, including me as the head of the executive, we are all subject to the teachings of the Constitution. There's no body in the Ghanaian state that avoid the concentration of power, of unregulated power in our state. We don't want that. We've had that experience before, and we brought about this Constitution in order not to allow that to reoccur. So I'm astonished about how much public energy has been wasted, I would say so with the greatest of respect, been wasted in an area, on an issue where there is so much clarity. And I'm happy that the court, and I'm sure as you're aware, the Supreme Court, when it is declaring the meaning of it, is, I believe, a decision of 7 of the judges, and a unanimous decision declaring what the constitutional position is. I think we have an opportunity now to put this matter to rest and continue with the work of our Parliament and the work of the ordering of our state.
Meanwhile, First Deputy Speaker of Parliament Joseph Osei-Owusu is cautioning the minority against misleading the public that the Supreme Court has taken away the powers of Parliament to regulate its procedures.
The avoidance of doubt, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, Parliament may, by standing orders, regulate its own procedure. So, everything Parliament does regarding regulation of its procedure is subject to the Constitution. So, what the Supreme Court said was that the particular standing order not unfairly. Leaders, I heard one of the leaders this morning. I said, gee, we should not be misinforming the public when it comes to matters like this. Leaders should speak sparingly. So please, whatever we do here to regulate our business is subject to the Constitution. If for any reason anybody says a clause or otherwise is against the Constitution, it is the Supreme Court that will determine B or C. Once that determination has been done, if a member wishes to ask for a review, appeal against that, it's open to us. But let's stop misinforming the public that the Supreme Court has taken away the power of Parliament to regulate itself. No. We still have the power to regulate our proceedings, except that.
Still in Parliament, the minority is demanding the immediate removal of 3 taxes on petroleum products to mitigate the impact of rising prices of crude oil on the international market. Member of the Mines and Energy Committee, Edward Bauer, argues that prices may hit 9 cedis per litre should government fail to take immediate steps to remove taxes. He also tasked the Bank of Ghana to take immediate steps to arrest the depreciation of the cedi, which he argues is compounding the problem.
We're already in the ascending form, so that cannot be the case. Ukraine may have aggravated the situation. You understand the point I'm making? Ukraine may have aggravated it. But I'm just saying that in that particular state, it is a blessing in disguise. Always smiling to the bank because of the monies we get from selling of the product. And so it's a win-win, in my opinion. It's a win-win situation. And I think, look, and let's be very honest with ourselves. If government does not do anything between now and the next window, which is on the 16th of March, today is increasing fuel prices. There is going to be an increase because you have it that normally the window is between 1st to 15th and 16th to 31st. And so they announce at the beginning of the month, which is always the 1st, and they do at the middle of the month, which is always on the 16th. So if government does not immediately step in now to do, look, I'm telling you that by the close of the month, we'll hit 9 cedis per liter. If we hit 9, it means that, look, I'm telling you, gradually people will, everything will ground to a halt. Because one, remember that the people who deal in the petroleum sector, particularly in the downstream sector, are private people. What government could have been looking at as an option, you remember that when the deregulation came and at one point the prices of crude also started going up, there was a reason, and the head of TOR, there was a reason for it. The reason was because TOR itself did not have the money to be able to buy crude. And BOSS has a mandate to store petroleum products in strategic stores. So what BOSS did was that, look, we will, instead of buying the refined products, we won't buy refined products, we'll go and buy crude and give it to TOR. Go ahead. Which is also, government owns about, because BOSS, you remember that BOSS owns about 20% of GOIL. Yeah. And government itself, so if you take BOSS and then government, it's a central bank, it's about 51%. So they will then take the products and give it to GOIL, and GOIL will sell at a reduced price. Said that people can still go and get fuel at GOIL at a lower price. So obviously he ran into trouble. I'm talking of what I could run into trouble with BDCs. Because what it then meant was that it was making BDCs not to be profitable. And this was the arrangement that was done. Because government was using state institutions to beat down the price.
The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources has observed a threat to future mining of granite deposits as quarry sites in the Ashanti region are being encroached by private developers. The local assembly say it's becoming increasingly difficult to mine the resource. Deputy Lands Minister George Merkuduko says structures found to have breached any laws face demolition without...
Large granite stone deposits create an imposing skyline visible across towns in Efija Kwabre South and Kwabre East districts. The resource, high in demand by estate developers, is a revenue cash cow for these communities. But
like a chicken and egg situation, residents here at Nkukwabo, Afrancho, Krobogetim, and others say they came to meet the rocks without the quarry institutions, and so they are free to build. But the quarry mining companies are also saying a meter buffer zone to be able to mine, and so these people are encroaching at the quarry mine sites.
Deputy Minister of Lands and Natural Resources George Merkuduka went on a fact-finding tour of the quarry sites to find solution to the problem. Told the minister continuous encroachment of the quarry sites will deny the assembly of badly needed revenue for development.
5 cedis per cubic meter of every load that goes away from Efija Kwabre South. Out of the 5 cedis, there were 1 cedi a bar assembly direct as business operating permit (BOP). Now 1 cedi a Edema Quarry Association to help them develop themselves. 3 cedis now can development projects.
George Merkuduka called for investigations into developments close to the quarry sites. He said structures found
in the concession without any permission from the Assembly nor the Lands Commission. Why not? The person doesn't need any compensation.
Some of the developers told our news team traditional authorities who sold the lands to them failed to indicate they were within buffer zones.
Inside the wing and a paisa. Into minne, Yakase be a mamma, Yamao Hakutu Quatanaha, and a mamma, Yetuaka Quatanaha mini problem.
There are plans to resettle some of the people here to pave way for the mining of this natural resource, which is needed in all sectors of development across the country. Until then, the situation remains the people, the rocks, and the quarry mines. Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaredonko, Efijakwabre, Ashanti region.
The Central removes the region from a moderately performing region to a high-performing region. Director Dr. Kosia Sapong says the region has seen a reduction in maternal and childhood mortalities, as well as teenage pregnancies, and more efforts are being engineered to better the health outcomes. Speaking at the Central Region Health Performance Review in Cape Coast, Dr. Sapong underscored the need for critical supervision and more stakeholder engagement for a more improved outcome. Richard Kojanyako has more.
According to the Regional Health Directorate, through the collective engagement with their key stakeholders, the Regional Health Service launched a 3-year initiative to address the recurrent challenges with maternal or maternal deaths through the adoption of the maternal death tracker, the building of the capacity of their staff on safe motherhood and life-saving skills, supervision of maternal health services by their specialists in all various areas, and community engagement on maternal and child health. She spoke on how the initiative has helped in reducing maternal and child mortality as well as teenage pregnancies.
Through these efforts, we have improved in most of our indicators, and therefore our aggregate score, holistic assessment score, as will be presented today by Volta region, improved from 3.6 in 2020 to 4.1 in 2021, making our region a high-performing region. We additionally improve in areas of childhood immunization, family planning services, and HIV services, among others. This initiative has proven to be very effective so far and has led to reduction of maternal deaths, with maternal mortality ratio reducing from 109.2 per 100 from 13.3% to 12.7%. Closely related to the maternal mortality challenge, and indeed a potential factor that can easily trigger maternal deaths, is the issue of teenage pregnancy, which is a challenge in our region. I'm happy to say that we improved slightly in reducing teenage pregnancy from 11.8% to 11.6%, but we need to do more.
The Regional Health Director also spoke about the new policy of network of practice that is helping to improve the health outcomes.
In recent times, the health sector has adopted a policy known as network of practice, where there is a well-equipped model health center which is linked to workplace infirmaries, marketplace infirmaries, school infirmaries, maternity homes, chemical shops, and CHIPS compounds for ease of referrals at the community level to support achievement of various districts to implement this policy. And I'm happy to note that many of them have responded positively by taking steps to designate some of their facilities in their districts as model health centers and making the necessary efforts to support them to function as such.
Chief Executive Officer of the Cape Coast Teaching Hospital, Dr. Eric Kofinjedu, addressed the issues of referrals in order to reduce mortalities in the health facilities.
Statistics, it is my hope that all health institutions in the region, be it private or public, will help reduce avoidable deaths by complying fully with the National Health Policy and guidelines.
Central Regional Minister Justina Marigodasan commended the Ghana Health Service for the remarkable strides it's making and assured them of government support in the area of personnel and infrastructure. On COVID-19, so far, the cumulative number of cases recorded in the region is well over 553 doses of COVID-19 vaccines out of the eligible population of 1,692,345. Those receiving first doses of COVID-19 vaccines is 785,603, and people who are fully immunized with the 2 doses stand at 455,806. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwejunyako, Cape Coast.
In our Ghana Month series this week, we've been telling you about Ghanaian dances that you may not know about. Well, today we tell you about Alange, the genre and dance of the Gonja people of the Savannah region. The dance performed a story. Justice Bedu has the rest of the story.
Alange originally comes from the northern part of Ghana. So they use the atumpan, okay, or the talking drum to perform. They use the lunga and then gungong. Gungong is the what we call brekete, the big armpit one, and then the lunga is the dono. They use that one to perform. The movement is mostly an articulation of the feet and then the neck, then the upper torso. Okay, almost like how the Kenyans they move. The Kenyans they move vertically upward, but we jerk our necks forward. All right, and it comes with the use of the horse tail. All right, where they throw it up and down, they move with it, and then they gesticulate, and then they move their necks, and then they dance. It's also a social dance. They perform this alange prior to the royals or the kings and then the queens for them to come onto the Deba grounds. To dance alange, you need jingles or ankle bearers, buzzers, and then you need horse tail, okay, and then you need your normal kurugu, that huge pantalon. Sometimes people throw in amulets for good measure. Okay. So the amulet is supposed to energize them, to give them that strength for them to perform for long hours without getting tired. And when you look at it all within the full regalia, it's pleasing to see.
And that's it for the AM News. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com. I am Mapito Sibidi. The AM show continues with Benjamin.
Thank you for staying with us. Time now for us to dig into the papers and let you know what is happening in Ghana and across the world. I have a surprise package for you. Right before we delve into the papers, let me say a very good morning to Samuel Mbura. Sam, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining.
Thank you, Benjamin.
Samuel will be joining me. He's my colleague here, and he'll be joining me for the review. Okay, so let's get right down to it. I have the Daily Guide, the Daily Graphic, the Finder, Republic Press, the Custodian, and the BNFT. What papers do you have?
I also have the Ghanaian Times, the Daily Guide, Daily Analyst. I have the Publisher, as well as the Daily Statesman.
Did you say Daily Analyst?
Yeah, I have.
You know, some of the papers keep coming from time to time. I'm not trying to denigrate any newspaper, but some of them hate you. But interesting. Let's start with the Ghanaian Times.
Yeah, so the Ghanaian Times comes with a picture of the Agric Minister, Dr. Free Akoto. Government earmarks $105 million rehab 3 dams to increase commercial production, and that's quite a good news. It's captured on page 15. And that's actually good news for the people up there. You know, government has been bent on improving agriculture, especially dry season. This $105 million is targeted to rehabilitate the Via and Tono Dam. These were dams that were constructed far back in 1986.
Exactly.
And they are really doing massively so well. So we hope that the rehabilitation will go as expected, and people there will benefit from it. So President Akufo-Addo...
And we know about how necessary, pardon my interjection, how important it is up north when it comes to irrigation.
You know, we actually have
a
without form of rainfall. It means we have one rainy season. So that was one of the reasons that promulgated the idea of one village, one dam. And it's actually a challenge that we are having up there. I hope that the rehabilitation... Actually, if government had pumped the monies of the one village, one dam, at least it could have given more job opportunities to the people. And I think that with this taught into the people, because these were recommendations from the Peasant Farmers Association, these were recommendations from people in the agriculture sector. Look, we have existing dams that have unused areas, acres of lands that we can exploit. So I think with this,
a quick one. You have lived in the Northern Belt for quite a while. Yeah. When it comes to the One Village, One Dam, initiative, how exciting is it for you? And from what you've seen, so what it was supposed to do versus what it is. What do you see, and what can you say about
these
it?
dams? We're told that they were meant to augment, not in the form of dams.
Right.
But we know technically, I'm not a technical man, but we've been talking to those engineers in the field, and they have always expressed their views that if you want to construct a dam, you should actually construct a dam that is representative. But if you have a dam that cannot cater or run throughout the dry season, it's not something that we can say that is serving the purpose. Yes, we have areas that...
Because then it would be a white elephant.
Exactly. We have
it's during the dry season that you would need
So these are actually, they have been constructed. However, the purpose of the construction is what we are still trying to battle with. Contractors were supposed to go back to site to ensure that there's value for money, because as it stands now, the dams as constructed do not...
Are they fit for purpose?
That is the problem we are facing now. They can't actually, feed large-scale farms, or in the case of Via and then the Tono Dam. So we're still calling on the government and the relevant authorities to make it a point, go back and get those dams fixed, because we're told that the dams were not completed as it stands now.
So now that we're having more money pumped into this entire enterprise, do you feel that would be the
Yes, some of us were of the school of thought that because I've done so much job working in the rural areas, and then we know the predicament of the farmers there. Dry season farming is the way to go.
Right.
And if you have the Palubo Dam coming to add to these existing dams, you have the Tono Dam, you have the Via Dam, which are strategically stationed or positioned in the region. You go towards the Western Belt, that is the Navongo stretch, go to Sandema, they are feeding on the Tono Dam. You come to the central zone, Via is serving the Boga and then the Bongo areas. You go towards the eastern zone, they also rely on the white voter to do the dry season farming.
And it calls to mind, the pledge that was made, the $1 billion Palugo Dam, which over the years, promise made, but because we were supposed to get it through IGFs, internally generated funds, or government of Ghana funds, that has also become another albatross around our neck, and that is what feeds into the situation where even.
So I must note that the various stages of work for the Palugo multi-purpose dam is still ongoing. The last time I checked, they had the environmental assessment, impact assessment, and then what they did was that they sought views from people in the affected areas, what they made of it, the things that they needed to do, and then concerns raised were had to do with the fact that they needed to compensate people, not in cash, but at least get sustainable.
That has been another thorny issue.
Sustainable, alternative livelihood for them. Right. If you don't do that, you just compensate them with the money.
But farmland is going to be affected. That is arable land, places where people are actually living, and all of that.
Yeah. So for now, the block work has not started. They're just doing the background works, and then we hope that it comes into fruition.
Right.
President Akufo-Addo, Mahama comment on the Supreme Court verdict. He has been speaking on it, and the Deputy Lands Minister declares war on encroached quarry sites. These are the stories making headlines on the Ghanaian Times.
Let's quickly take a look at the Daily Graphic newspaper now. Voting rights of Deputy Speaker. Supreme Court settles matter. President Akufo-Addo, he has stated that the unanimous decision, 7-0, adopted by the Supreme Court in its ruling on the voting rights of Deputy Speakers should put the matter to bed. He indicated that Articles 102 and 104 of the Constitution made it absolutely clear, quote, in black and white, that the deputy speakers, when they were presiding, had the right to participate in the vote of the House. But how does this, rub off on you, Samuel? Because we have the standing orders of Parliament, and when you read from 101, 102, 104, they are basically cows what the Parliament, all through to the 7th Parliament, even to the 8th Parliament, has adopted, has employed. But I think owing to the changing dynamics, where we have an even or hung Parliament with the independent member of Parliament for Fomena, also second Deputy Speaker, being the counterbalance. Yeah. Do you think all of this would have come up if we didn't have the shape of Parliament? And how do you feel about this ruling? Because people have said, for example, imagine Honourable Bagbin, Right Honourable Bagbin, is not around. Let's assume he is indisposed. Let's assume. Somehow the second Deputy Speaker, Isiama, is also, whether within the precincts of Parliament, not immediately available. The first Deputy Speaker is sitting. There is a matter on which a vote must be sought. you would think that, yes, they would need a CMI, but let's assume a CMI is not in there. He is in the chair. How does he leave the chair? Empty, so there's no one basically manning affairs.
I don't think we would have gotten to where we are. We wouldn't have gotten to the Supreme Court for interpretation of whatsoever. But I'm still waiting for the judgment. You know, I'm not a lawyer though, but at least we need to have a fair idea of what the jury have said in their judgment.
Reasoning.
Because we understand latest by today the judgment will be out. But I've heard so many commentaries, and I think we need to at least. There's a way we can table our grievances, not through the violent ways. I've heard people make comments to the effect that, the eating of the food is in the pudding. We don't know how it will be, but we hope that we will not have another violent situation.
And that is a reality, because the minority end has said that. I mean, I've heard the likes of Sam George. He was here on the show, and he said that. Whether likable or unlikable, he said that between now and 2025, there's not going to be any agreement between the two sides in Parliament, which itself gives some cause for concern. And here we are, and they are talking about the fact that, no, we do not subscribe to this. How can you be a referee and a player at the same time? How can you be the speaker or act as speaker and have a vote, casting vote at the same time?
But I think
many dynamics.
Yeah, I think the majority side should look at consensus building. It's not a matter of pushing your way through. If you want to do that, the minority will definitely come hard on you. So why do some commentaries are actually irritating the minority part of Parliament? Yes, because you know you have a hung Parliament. Why would you want to force your way through? Build consensus. You're all humans. Why can't you meet with the leadership, meet with the backbenchers? Let's have an amicable way out. Other than this, I mean, Parliament has been reduced to something that some of us think that it is.
No, it's becoming comical. And I use my words without trying to denigrate the House. It's becoming comical. And if they fight again on the back of this e-levy thing, then I don't know. Because they've met with the Council of State and all of that. Religious groups have stepped in the last election. We had President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, if you recall, even when, accepting victory and claiming it, said that with the sort of parliament we have now, we must reach out for more consensus. I don't know, but I've not seen that in this 8th parliament. But more stories in there. 10 medical officers declined posting to Upper East region. Another great worry. Another great worry. And sometimes it is not the medical staff you have to blame. You go there and look at the conditions. I remember nurses in some part of the country at a point were complaining that where they were constantly getting robbed. Some of them were under retirement. So there are complaints, but we also need to put in place the right logistics to ensure that these people are safe. You don't want to go through medical school.
The last time I spoke with the Medical and Dental Council, the board chairman, Professor Kenya Mitchell, he made a point that the council does not have anything to do. They are only responsible for training and then the professional ethics of the medical field. However, we have to, put in place deliberate measures, policies, incentives to actually positively discriminate. If you are going up there, then these are some of the incentives that you are going to enjoy. I know there are some level of incentives so far, but it is not encouraging enough. But what is government doing? It says, okay, it has gotten to a point that he also thinks that we should motivate them. In even the advanced countries, we have, different packages for people who go to rural areas. Now, Benjamin, I think there's one thing that we are not adopting as a country. Look, we have what we call the health tourism. What is Ghana government doing about it? Deliberately, in our borders, the border towns. National security can look into it.
We're not deliberate about much.
Exactly. Look at the Volta region. Look at Upper East, Upper West. We have people who come from the sub-Saharan areas like Burkina Faso, Niger. During this dry season, for instance, this is where we have these reptiles attacking people, snakes and all.
Right.
You go to Burkina Faso, Upper East region is bordered to Burkina Faso in 3 strategic areas. You go towards the Boko areas, go towards the northern part of, the north of the regional capital, Bongo to Namoy. Go in, people who will be thronging from Burkina Faso, coming from Mali to access healthcare in Ghana. And that money comes to us. So if we deliberately get strategic, modern health facilities in the border towns, it will bring people in.
And that's the whole point about
can be
our nation's developmental woes. We are not strategic about much, if anything. Look at the NDPC, for example. We don't even have a national plan. We're operating, on autopilot. We are going. Heaven knows where we are going.
Exactly.
She's a very senior colleague. And this was one of the things she was bemoaning. Even today, the likes of China, the likes of Singapore have plans. Even those that are so, advanced, and we are here and we don't even have a plan. And it's all because of the politics.
Interesting, there's a hospital facility that has been completed in the Upper East Regional Capital Borga. There was actually an agreement that started somewhere in the 1990s. It transcended into the Kufuor's administration. That's a Borga Thanga hospital. In the Kufuor's administration, they did some work on it. The previous Mohammed's administration also did an extension. You go there, you have a beautiful edifice. But from 2016 till now, or 2017 till now, the project has been completed structurally, but it has not been furnished. Now, the Saudi government was supposed to give us $20 million in furnishing it. However, we are getting, the last time the regional minister told us that, it's like there's some edifices there. People are crowded in the walls. You go to the children's ward, you go to the maternity, and everything is in the mess. Imagine that facility is sitting there. You are not using it. They say there are no, equipment that you can put into structure.
So you need basically, you have the logistics, at least. The edifice is there. All you need is a bit of logistical support, human resource. Anyway, let me wrap up. Africa CDC signs MOU with Pfizer for COVID-19 pills. On the international front, BJP party retains India's biggest state in key elections, pictured there, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. There's also no progress on ceasefire after Kiev-Moscow talks, pictured there, Dmytro Kuleba, Foreign Affairs Minister for Ukraine, and of course, Sergei Lavrov, his counterpart. On the back page, Ketu North Municipal Hospital starts operation. So at least something that is working in this instance.
Speaking there, MPP says election record straight. It comes to the picture of John Boydo, the General Secretary of the NPP. Bagbane appoints NDC man acting speaker. So these are the stories on the Delhi guy there.
Would you like to get into that?
Oh, I think we have already exhausted some of these stories. But yesterday, there have been issues having to do with the MPP, the polling station elections, and they used the opportunity to talk about the Formina situation. There are about 25 polling stations that have not had the elections conducted. So they used the opportunity to address them. And then, there was an instance whereby the painted colors.
It's been repainted.
It has been repainted. But the indication I'm getting is that those who spearheaded the process will be sanctioned by the party. That's what the information I do have. Those who spearheaded the painting of the...
You imagine at this level that, these are likely card-bearing members of the party, and beyond that, maybe not much, or maybe a few holding some executive positions or something of the sort, past or present. What exactly can the party do to these people? Ban them from participating in further elections or something of the sort. What really can you do to such people?
Russia war. 2 days ago, I was speaking to a friend in Russia. He works with one of the oil fields in Russia. I was asking him about the economic impact on the sanctions from the EU and other bodies that are concerned about the situation going on there. He says, look, everything is going on well in Russia. The Russian government is even considering bringing down the prices of fuel because they already anticipated, they prepared, they knew what was going to happen, so they don't have issues with fuel. However, sending money home is a challenge. The Russian ruble is actually definitely...
The ruble, to play on words, the ruble has crumbled.
Yes.
It's been terrible. The stock exchange in Russia has tanked, and their currency. You see, we must read the fine lines between this. Russia, of course, wants to paint a picture to the world that everything is kosher, everything is fine in Russia. Everything is not fine in Russia. If you look at the United States stopped all forms of export or import of Russian coal, Russian energy, I'm talking about oil, gas, all of them. Look, Russia is feeling the pinch, but of course with Putin at the helm of affairs, he would want to paint the picture that everything is picture perfect, and they would want to do some of the things, but they are going to bleed. And the European Union is planning within the next year or two to cut down its reliance on Russian gas, for example, by 2/3. That's massive. In the end, Russia is going to lose out.
Okay, so Benjamin, that's why I think as a country, this fuel-fed vehicular policy that we are having, I'm talking about fossil fuel, why can't we explore other means? We have...
No, but it's expensive.
It's expensive.
They're expensive. Look, why do you think Ukraine with that nuclear reactor, the one that was unfortunately bombarded by the Russians, thankfully the reactors were not affected. Countries are moving away from that. But if you want more sustainable means of energy, they come with quite a bit of cost. And we here, we've not even been able to manage the fossil fuel bit to talk of moving on to other
At the initial state, it may be expensive, but we are looking at the long run. the benefits.
I agree.
I'm looking at the environment perspective as well, the continuous reliance on fossil fuel, the effect on greenhouse emission that is actually affecting our climate change. Perhaps there can be a roundtable discussion. The last time I listened to the Vice President, he spoke about the fact that, okay, there are processes to look into the issue of moving away from fossil fuel because of the international challenges and all that. And I think that is a right way for us to go.
It is the right way, but I can say that for now it will just be rhetoric.
Yeah.
It will not be
For the
much
meantime.
more. It is the way to go. But you see, at some point, it also comes at a wrong time. We have now, since 2010 thereabouts, started exploring oil. Black gold. You see that the move away from these fossil fuels, in a way, will also not be fair to some countries that are now starting on this journey. Because what it means is that then you could have your reserves sitting there, not being put to much use. Of course, there will be a mix, an energy mix. You will not simply say fossil fuels, bye-bye. But
it's a gradual transition.
It means that some countries, especially in Africa, are going to bleed.
In more trouble, attempted contract killing at Thakwa. It captured a picture of Dr. George Akufo, the Ampare IGP, and Nana Ponsa alias Okoben mining magnate and CEO of Okoben Mining Company Limited. Terrified residents demand swift justice, warned Ghana police not to cover up case. Parliament not beyond scrutiny. Akufo, though, fires from Dubai. Mass burial for Apiachi. Victims today. Quite a devastating situation there. The story is on page 34 and Service Agency.
Let's look at Republic Press. JIPS withdraws membership of sacked PPA boss. There's also easy to hold IPAC meeting. Interesting, because we know the dynamics when it comes to the major minority side in Parliament. The NDC, I speak of. Spare parts dealer remanded over fraud. Parliament not above the law. Akufo-Addo accepts Supreme Court decision as Mahama whines in disagreement. And Attorney General challenges Bakavomo's bail application. But speaking of this, spare part dealer remanded, it brings to mind the bit of...
To cringe, it had to do with the fact that these officers that were allegedly involved in this act are from the SWAT unit.
Elite unit.
The SWAT unit. We should be worried as a country. And the report has it that these recruits came from the same training school. Is there something wrong from the SWAT force allegedly involved in such acts? We should be worried. Look, these are also lower rank police officers. These are constables. I think there's one Lance Corporal that is part of the alleged robbery incident. But if you look about 3 of them are constables. These are new recruits into the system. So it tells you, it gives you the idea of the type of people we put into the service.
And the type of people we're putting into the service is also about the political strings to which they are tied. NDC MPP, we keep infiltrating our services. It's not about quality, it's about whom you know, it's about your political... I don't know. There was an instance where I lived in a neighborhood and everyone knew that Asemesi was a criminal. Basically, he had been reported many times, even for robbery and the rest. You would find him on the streets. So people gave up. Next thing you know, this person under some administration is a police officer, and you ask yourself, how does this person
get into the service? That's a problem. So that is why my emphasis is on the lower rank. Because if lower rank officers go into the service with this mindset, we should be at risk. We should be worried as a country. I heard some security analysts talking about disbanding the SWAT unit. It's only a call, but disbanding the SWAT unit is going to cost us.
Dr. Bonar has called
so the point is that
but I think it would be better to feel the pain of that than continue having them there. And I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying that if you have these criminal elements in there,
is in charge of when there is a need to exert maximum force. They disperse crowd. They're in charge of crowd control. So if you tell us that disband the SWAT unit in case there's a challenge, which unit will go? Is it a case that you use it?
I guguess when there's also a need to, a la DSP Azugu, when there's a need to, combat mosquitoes, we use them sometimes.
That's quite interesting, though. Now the Delhi Statesman has a story of the Supreme Court. It's right. President speaks on Deputy Speaker's voting rights. MPP to discipline errant officers. Members and then VOMO were not cooperating with investigation. So We have already spoken about these stories, but in terms
All
of
right.
Chelsea...
So the bit in there, I think now for matches, they kind of have only, is it £20,000 or something of the sort, a bus. I mean, it's becoming a real crunch for Chelsea. They cannot sell their jerseys. I think names are off and all of that.
You can get transfers into the...
I'm not a Chelsea fan. I'm a Manchester United fan. But right now, you have to feel for Chelsea and what they are going to.
Chairman Wuntemi is going to buy.
Chairman Wuntemi is going to do what?
Chelsea.
I saw that statement. I'm sorry, but wait, you let me leave.
He has a social capital. Why can't he buy? He has
3.1 billion.
Yeah, 3 billion.
What?
Yeah,
dollars.
I mean, not dollars. We're talking about pounds or so. So if it's a case that he's talking about he's dwelling on his social capital, he has other business moguls that can help him. Why not? It's possible he can buy. But I understand the bid for Chelsea has been actually. I read on Gary Al Smith's statue. He spoke about the fact that the bidding has been put in with the management of Chelsea. So let's see how.
Not to denigrate him, but if he does, well, good for us. Good for all of us. Final story, the final newspaper. From a cleaner to car engine specialist, she dreams of owning her own garage. It has to do with Eva Sikapa Kaki. I think you should check out the story in the Finder newspaper. Well, it's a wrap. Up next, we bring you everything from the sporting world. But Sam, thank you so much for joining this morning.
Thank you.
God bless.
Right.
Sports up next.
If you have fears, by the Director General of the National Sports Authority, Peter Chumesi. And on Thursday, winners of the National Cross Country paid a visit to the Vice President of the country, and he has made a call to investors in Ghana. He says they should be willing to invest in other sporting disciplines beyond football. And Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich has been sanctioned. And what sort of impact will this have on the club? My colleague Gary Al Smith hosted Martin Ziegler, the man who broke the story about his sanction, and he's given us an idea about how much that will be costing Chelsea in terms of ticket sales alone. Good morning, everyone. I am Muftau Nabila Abdullah. This is AM Sports. First, the 25 in Cape Coast. Well, there were fears that the facility will not be ready to host the big clash because of the organization of the 65th anniversary Independence Day at the facility. Director General of the National Sports Authority, speaking to Joy Sports, has said that the place will be ready within a week.
We have made it an annual event now since 20. I don't know the 6 March is expected. I think that's what people have been discussing this, and I'm really a bit disappointed in this because already we put it out that if the GFA wanted to use any of the other facilities, like for Accra Sports Stadium and Kumasi, they could have gone ahead and to do so. They made us aware that no, it has to be at the Cape Coast, and then we said we have to put in place the right measures. Intervention so that immediately after the 6th March, which everybody expected that there will be some impact on the pitch. Of course, if you have these army vehicles and marching and all that on the pitch, it will be impacted. But I think what we have really now put in place, mechanism is said that it can recover the pitch just within about a week. So in the next week, if you want to really go there and check the state and working with the National Sports Authority, thanks to the President, already he has given us a lot of new officers in the area of estate management, the pitch managers and so on and so forth. So we have enough hands helping with the fertilization of the pitch, water in regiments which are in the rapid modulations and so on and so forth. So this pitch is a living material. Once it gets the needed nutrients, it gets all the water and all the other care. We are expecting it that within a week's time.
Now let's hear from the Vice President of the country, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who hosted winners of this year's Nationals Cross Country at a ceremony in his office. And he has charged members of the society to invest in sporting disciplines beyond football. He claims Ghanaians are focused on only football to the detriment of other sporting disciplines.
This event, cross country, is an event which we really had abandoned for 10 years. You have to nurture sports especially, has a major role to play in our country. The major benefits of sports is so underestimated. And over the years, as governments have not really paid the requisite attention to sports. Maybe we tend to focus a lot on football, but there are many other sports. When you look at many economies around the world, many industry creates, it's just massive. It's just massive across the sports industry, the jobs that we create, the incomes that are generated. And so it's very, very important that as a country, we pay attention to sports, we invest in sports, and we nurture sports so that we can have the benefits for this country.
And, well, in 2017, the National Sports Authority initiated steps to ensure that it is brought back. Board Chairman of the National Sports Authority, Seth Pamwum, says that it is in their DNA to ensure that every corporate institution in the country adopts a discipline to manage. He says it is part of their drive to ensure that sports in the country is fully developed.
We have made it an annual event now since 2017. We've made it, and this is the fifth one that we've done, and we did it in line with the Jubilee the fifth independence celebration of the country. And it is really something that we're going to sustain it every year. We are trying to even involve corporate Ghana in terms of sponsorship, to come on board. Not only to the athletics issue, but also to other sporting disciplines. We will be knocking on the doors of the corporate Ghana to come on board to support, so that we can take most of the youth off the street through sports. And it's something that we want every Ghanaian to buy into, every corporate Ghana to buy into, and even come and adopt a sport, come and adopt a sports discipline. It's a drive we are going to push forward, so that, people are interested in golf, some are interested in table tennis, some are interested in boxing. They will come on board and adopt these federations and support, so that in totality, we can have a total annual sporting events coming on every year.
Is that part of your strategy to reposition sports in the country?
I think this is just the drive we are going by. We have said that sports is a discipline that can take the youth off the street. It's a discipline that, if well invested and sustained, can contribute to our national GDP. Because people will be competing outside, and once they begin winning medals, I believe they will bring in their awards home, and this will contribute into our national reserves. So it is something that we'll be doing in totality, and to reposition sports as a drive force for mobilizing youth for
2021 Games. Samuel Teche has officially turned professional after announcing a deal with Bazooka Promotions and Management Syndicate. After finally saying goodbye to amateur ranks, the Baden boxer has set his sights on winning a world title for Ghana.
I'm now a professional boxer. I'm no more an amateur boxer again. So what I have to tell Ghanaians is that the support they give it to me at the amateur level, I'm going to be a world champion at the professional level. And first on the list, I want to thank God first, and also thank my mom, dad, and my trainer, who is Bazooka Kote, WBA waterweight champion in the world. And also thank my manager, Clement Papa Kote, who is called aka. How to say is, I'm thanking everybody here and thanking all my fans in Atupai. I thank you very much for what you have been doing for me.
On the 107th anniversary of Chelsea, it coincided with a day that club supporters would want to forget because it became a moment the man who has spearheaded their success was sanctioned of UK imposed on Roman Abramovich, who has invested hugely on Chelsea. And the UK government sanctions Roman Abramovich. What it means, all his assets, including Chelsea FC, is frozen. Chelsea given special dispensation to pay salaries, but cannot sell players, match tickets, or merchandise. These were some of the decisions that came through. And also, there were other interesting moments that have been added by the UK government, who had said that though invoking his licenses in the UK entirely, Chelsea giving capped amounts to spend for home and away matches. Sale of the club can be done only on condition Roman Abramovich does not benefit. Roman sanctioned because of alleged influence in Russia invasion of Ukraine. And this one, sale of the club can be done only on a condition Roman Abramovich does not benefit. He had already indicated that the sale of the club, the money he's going to make from the sale of the club will be donated to the victims of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And what it means is that the sale of the club, Gareth Smith, he was one of the first reporters to break the story on the sanctions of Roman Abramovich. He says that Chelsea stands to lose at least £3 million in terms of ticket sales.
Yeah, correct. May the 31st. So what it means is that Chelsea cannot sell tickets for any matches for the rest of the season. They cannot generate income, any extra income. They can't sign any new sponsorship deals. They cannot. They can receive money from the Premier League that's already owed to them from TV deals. That has to go into a special account. Can only be used to pay for the players' wages. So what you got here is a situation where the club has to pay out a lot of money every month from ticket sales.
Wow.
We've had, as you say, 3, the shirt sponsor pulling out, suspending their deal. Does that mean they're not going to be paying their money? It's a really big concern, and that's why the club today, they went back to the British government. They said, you know, we are in serious danger of not being able to be a liquid asset by the end of the season if we're not allowed to sell tickets and if we're going to be facing this freeze.
Well, thank you for staying with us on the AM show. We bring you our big stories. In fact, our big story for the day. It has to do with that Supreme Court ruling, and we're waiting patiently for the ratio or the reasoning behind that directive or that ruling by the court, not just for us as media people, but for the entirety of our country to find out what went for the august House of Parliament, especially in this very tricky 8th Parliament. But joining us as we digest the issues related to that development, how especially the minority side has reacted to it, with the majority, the chief executive of our country, Akufo-Addo, actually coming to say, respect the decision of the court. We know about the ping pong that is played when there are judicial decisions, but where do we go from here? Joining us for the discussion, Dr. Rashid Draman. He's a gentleman. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us on the AM show.
Morning.
Okay, I've heard only one voice. Right, two of you now. Thank you so much for joining. Let me take your initial reactions to the ruling from the Supreme Court. And at the point, I'll share with you what your colleague, Professor Kwabena, I'll share with you what your colleague, Professor Jampo, shares. But Professor Safo Kantanka, I'll start with you. With all your time, studying the activity, what does this ruling mean to Parliament as an independent institution?
Thank you very much, Benjamin. Well, we've spoken about this about a number of times, a couple of times, and I had always said that because of the disagreements over whether the deputy speaker presiding should be able to vote or not, some of us suggested that the appropriate place to go was the Supreme Court. But the moment you have disagreements over a law, the place to go is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, by my little knowledge of law, you go there on the point of law. So that if there's a provision in a law that is not clear, people disagree over what that provision means, the place to go is the Supreme Court. And that's the final place, final arbiter. So the decision of the Supreme Court is final. And so I'm happy that at the end of the day, we got to the Supreme Court, and that a decision has been made. Now what we have to look at are the ramifications going forward, how we have to look at this and make sure that we take the right decisions in Parliament and make sure that Parliament functions as we expect it to function. Because we know that for some time now, the whole of this year, we haven't been able to do any substantial work as a Parliament. So for me, this decision must settle the arguments so that we can move on. The disagreements will normally come, but when the final decision maker makes a decision, it binds everybody. And let's take
well, that's the whole point.
And move on.
That's the whole point, Prof. The minority is saying that, well, the ultimate decision maker in this internal affair is not the Supreme Court, so to speak. If you listen to the rhetoric right after the ruling came up, I mean, I listened later in the evening to the minority leader, and he seemed to have toned down a bit on that line of thinking. But the rhetoric has been that we are masters of our own rules. This is what we've had from the first, Parliament in the Fourth Republic through to the seventh, even into the eighth. It's only because now this matter has come up and we fear some manipulation, and that is why this may have gone in this way. And so we don't subscribe to it. How do you react to that?
Well, I think that being masters of their own rules is not absolute. It can never be absolute because Parliament makes the laws and the laws are interpreted by the judiciary. So that idea of we are masters of our own laws, yes, it is true, but it's not absolute. At a point in time, the courts may have to come in to interpret. When they make the laws, who implements the laws? It is the judiciary. And so you see, in the course of fashioning out a law, you can write a language that may seem clear, but in the course of time, as events pan out, you may realize that there's a problem with the interpretation of the law. And that is why we have opportunities to review constitutions and laws. So when they talk about being masters of their own laws, yes, I agree, but there's a limit to it. There's a limit to it because even after they have promulgated their own laws, they are not the ones to implement and interpret the law. So that they should know that.
Right. Dr. Draman.
Now, there is the standing orders can be called as a bio, and it must be consistent with the Constitution. So if at a point in time, there are problems as to whether something is consistent or not consistent with the supreme law of the land, you go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will decide, and they have decided. And I think that is the final decision that we must live by.
All right, let me bring in Dr. Draman, and I know you're on a bit of a time leash, so I'll spend some time with you. With your indulgence, Prof, I'll have more interference, like some have said.
Well, perhaps to find a better word or a different word from interference.
What word would that be?
Maybe getting involved in the business of Parliament, because from what I know, I think all over the world, there has always been, if you like, a resistance by the courts not to get involved in the business of Parliament. I mean, because yes, they have to interpret the Constitution, and even the standing orders are clear, as the professor said. I mean, the standing orders are not absolute. I mean, the orders that are in contention here. If you look at Order 109, it says it should be read in tandem with Article 104 of our Constitution. So it means that, yes, they are masters of their own rules, but those are not absolute. But you see, there is maybe what we call, in my view, the mood of the nation,
Are you still with us, Dr. Draman? It appears his connection may have experienced a bit of a glitch in there. We'll try to work it out and reconnect with Dr. Rashid Draman and get his thoughts further. But let me quickly bring you in, Prof. What do you see to be some of the problematic areas of this ruling? It has been said, for example, that on a day in the hot seat and the first deputy speaker has to take the chair, and maybe the second deputy is not available. Let's assume that. So there is only one person sitting in the chair, and there is a matter for discussion, a matter is put up for vote, and the same person putting the matter up for vote now has to leave, presiding over the session, and then go and vote and come back, which would lead to some vacancy when it comes to who is actually manning the affairs of Parliament. When it comes to this ruling from the Supreme Court, how it could impact negatively the free flow of work of Parliament.
Thank you very much, Benjamin. I think this is pretty straightforward. It is about voting. Apart from the voting right, there's nothing else. I don't know whether maybe I haven't read the full judgment. They haven't brought the full judgment, so we haven't read it. But what I gather is that it is only about the voting rights of the deputy speakers. And for me, I feel that we have overblown the ramifications from this ruling. Because how many times does Parliament vote? Or it's only on few occasions that when they go to Parliament, matters come up and they have to vote. Most of the time, it's by voice. Most of the time, it's by consensus. And I have always said that, parliamentary work happens behind the scenes. And therefore, there's a specific item that has generated a lot of argument and disagreement. That is the e-levy. So for me, it's all about the e-levy. And it's unfortunate the minority leader said the decision is an affirmation of the passage of the e-levy.
What do you think about that? I mean, the timing and everything. Is this something that is too far-fetched for them to say?
I don't think so. I don't think so. It is a decision. The Supreme Court doesn't stand up to come and say that I'm coming to interpret a certain law. Even if there's a loophole in the law, there's a problem with the law. Unless somebody takes to the Supreme Court, they cannot take that. They cannot start. So somebody took it to the Supreme Court, and I commend the lawyer who took it there.
Justice Abdullahi.
And then the Supreme Court interpreted it. Yes, we must commend him because it has brought some clarity to the e-levy. I think you are being unfair to the Supreme Court and to the people of Ghana and to the Constitution. It's not about the e-levy, it's about us. So for me, we can still function. And that brings me back to the issue of consensus building. And I have always made this. Anytime we have spoken, I have made this point that we cannot do business as usual. It's about consensus building. And the two sides of Parliament must begin to build consensus.
Can that consensus be built? Sat right next to me and said, between now and 2025, there's not going to be any agreement, so to speak, between the two sides, the minority and the majority. Why? He says the majority is not being consultative enough and they are being very dishonest. He cites when, for example, there was an interaction with them, with the minority leader on the e-levy. Next thing you know, and not just once, next thing you know, on the floor of Parliament, they're saying something else. They've not shown themselves to be candid, to be honest, and for which reason there will be no such. How does that work out? It doesn't appear that consensus is going to see the light of day.
I think that statement is problematic. As human beings, as parliamentarians, they should be ready to build consensus at any time. If you make up your mind that within the next 3-4 years, we are not going to build any consensus, we are not going to agree with the majority side or whatever, that will be unfair to Ghanaians. We have put them there to make laws for this country to function.
Hello, Prof.
Because I think that is very unfair. We should be able to decide that from now on, if the majority side or the government side of parliament decides to make some gestures of extending a hand to them for consensus building, they should be ready to do that. They should think about what they are not going to agree. What about if the tables turn and the other side also takes the same decision? It means we're going to have a country that will not be working. And that should not be the case. We should be ready to, as Ghanaians who say, Jojo, that's a local parlance. We should be able to have this majority side, the government side,
right,
not extending the hand of consensus building
right
to the minority. But of course, recently, the majority leader has also said that they have had several meetings. And at meetings, the minority side normally agrees to the discussions, the issues that come up. But when they come out, it's like, no, we are not going to agree. So there's some kind of, if I should say, some kind of disservice to both Parliament and to Ghanaians.
Very quickly, man. Do you feel the minority is being intransigent and so is, stalling the country in terms of government business? We know, for example, that, well, on the back of not meeting the quorum and all of that, government business has basically ground to a standstill. Is the minority
exactly
is it being intransigent? Is it being unnecessarily what's the word to use? Unfair, basically, to our country, to the constituents?
To a very large extent, I'll say so.
Right.
You see, I have mentioned this before. If you look at it all comes back to the issue of the E-levy. And our past experience should tell us that also about holding the government in a way that it will make it not function properly. The business of government has come to a halt, as you said, because you see, when the issue of VAT came up in the 90s, there was a lot of hullabaloo. The opposition at the time said, no, they were not going to agree. It was withdrawn initially, and later was brought back. But when later the NPP came to power, did they cancel VAT? I think it was even increased in terms of the
exactly the percentage,
value, in terms of percentages.
Right.
Okay. When the NHIS bill went to Parliament, what did we hear? NHIS being cancelled. It is in the same vein that we have to look at that.
Okay.
And you remember, one of the minority MPs, I think Dr. Apak, was asked a question as to whether they will cancel the E-levy should it pass when they come to power. He said they hadn't come to power, so he was not going to be able to answer that question. If the E-levy passes, and in the future the minority comes to power, the NDC,
all right,
let them bear the brunt of it.
Okay.
It's a direct tax. The Ghanaians who will feel it will decide as to whether it is good or not, and let the government of the day bear the brunt of the passage of this bill, but not hold the government to ransom, such that government business for almost 3 months is halted.
Right.
I think that is not fair.
Thanks.
It is not fair to Ghanaians.
It's not fair to Ghanaians. Professor Safo Kantanka there sharing his thoughts. Hold on for me, Prof. Let me bring in Dr. Draman. Dr. Draman, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great. So a quick one. There are even before we get to the Apex Court's decision, you were making a point reflecting on that bit initially. I want you to wrap up on that before we get to what other academics are saying.
Well, I can't remember, if I lost some of my thoughts. But I mean, what I was trying to say was that, when given the the mood of the nation. I mean, given what is happening in Parliament, if you look at what this decision is going to do, rather than, for me, I mean, from where I sit, I mean, and looking at the business of Parliament, I mean, rather than bring the two sides together, we are already seeing, very stark divisions. And the professor said that this is just simply about voting rights. I mean, I disagree with that. It goes beyond that. It's about balance of power. I mean, because of, you heard them dragging e-levy into the discussion and so on. So
because it definitely will tilt the balance of power in Parliament. It will.
Exactly. So it is about balance of power, not just simply in normal times. Yes, I mean, it's simply about voting rights. But I mean, in the times in which we live in, with the 8th Parliament, I think that it goes far beyond that. And then when you talk about consensus, consensus simply does not just happen. Given what is happening in our Parliament, a lot of work has to go into making sure that the two sides come together.
Right.
And that is why some would say that maybe the court, in making its decisions, must always also look at the mood of the nation and must consider many factors apart from maybe what is happening now. I mean, is that if we were in the 7th Parliament or in the 6th Parliament, this wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have had, challenges about deputy speakers and so on. This is happening mainly because of the split nature of the House.
Right.
And it also means that our standing orders is not fit, for the kind of situation that we find ourselves in.
So do you agree, quickly on that, do you agree that this test, which the Supreme Court has taken up and ruled on, was necessary? Because the same, constitution, we've used the same standing orders and all of that. Do you feel it was apt at this moment for some clarity to be brought on these specific gray areas, if you like, of parliamentary procedure?
If we're in normal times, I would have said 100% I agree. But if from the work that I do in terms of supporting the functioning of Parliament, making sure that our parties with it in terms of the timing of it, because right now what we have been doing all this while is try to bring the two sides together, and now if you have any matter that is taking them apart, then I think it poses some difficulty.
Are you saying you smell some mischief, that there could have been some manipulation? Mind you, the person who took this matter to the Supreme Court is a lawyer. He wanted to know what basically the 1992 Constitution, but some have also alluded from the majority side to the fact that this lawyer has some relationship with the NDC. And so it cannot be said that there was any manipulation in there. Was there? What do you think?
No. I don't think there's any manipulation in terms of seeking clarity. What I'm saying is that, the times in which we live, and for the past how many weeks, no business has taken place in the House. And if we want the two sides to come together, I think we have to make some kind of very difficult choices. As a country.
Okay.
If the minority side is saying, forget consensus building, forget compromise and working together until 2025, I think that for me that poses some serious difficulty.
Let me run these by you quickly, then bring in Prof for a bit more, and we can get ready to sew it up. Professor Kwekwaza writes, consider Order 225, and I just want us to reflect on some of these things so that we stretch our thinking on what exactly this court's, the Apex Court's ruling means. Consider Order 225, which provides that, quote, the chairman of a committee shall not have an original vote, but in the event of an equality of votes, he shall give a casting vote. Can the Supreme Court declare the order unconstitutional because it deprives the chairman, therefore his constituents, of an original vote? I think not. Nor can the court, in my opinion, invalidate the casting vote because it makes the chairman a sole appellate judge of the committee's decisions. He goes on to write, Parliament and the courts are co-equal branches of government, and neither can tell the other how to run its affairs. Your quick reaction to that, Doc?
Yes, when you look at again, I mean, that is where there are a lot of perhaps maybe inconsistencies and some ambiguities, particularly in the standing orders, because we've been trying, remember, more than 15 years. There have been efforts to revise these orders that Parliament has been using over the years, and I mean those efforts have not yet yielded any positive results. Because if you look at, for instance, Order 109, I go back to that one again because that is what has created all these. And then you read it in tandem with the Article 104 of the Constitution. Order 109 is clear that, when a deputy speaker or any other member is presiding, he loses all the votes and so on that he or she has. But when you go into the Constitution, Article 104.3 or so, I think it just simply talks about the speaker. So you see, I mean, there, I think...
there lies the problem, isn't it?
There lies a problem. There lies a problem. And so for me, fortunately, the standing orders are still currently under review. And if I look at what is happening around the continent, I think we are one of the few countries on the continent that has a speaker who is not a member of parliament. And some have said maybe it's time to let the deputy speakers also be non-members of form a quorum. I mean, because they have all these clearly stated in their standing orders. So maybe this, I mean, apart from all the challenges that it might generate, I hope that perhaps it will be some temporal challenges, because in this country we have seen situations where the Supreme Court has pronounced, I mean, our president, His Excellency Akufo-Addo, has had to disagree with the Supreme Court when it ruled against him, but he said, I respect, the decision. President Mahama did the same. So I hope the minority will come around, and my hope is that we'll use this opportunity to try to see how maybe the standing orders can be fit for purpose, and also even assume and imagine, the kind of challenges that are coming in the future.
Prof, for your verdict, are they fit for purpose? Is it high time we took a very good look at the standing orders of Parliament?
Yes, it's obviously clear. Parliament itself started looking at reviewing the standing orders long ago. I think during the time of President Akufo or so. They have been trying to revise it, review it, but they have not been successful. So Parliament itself knows that the standing orders have some problems, and they need to be reviewed. So they are on it. And
it's taken a pretty long time, hasn't it? It's taken a pretty
some way for us to take a critical look because of the nature of this current Parliament. Perhaps if we had done it earlier and we had come to this Parliament, would have been another issue altogether. So maybe by coincidence, it's good they were not able to do it before this time. So this kind of issue to inform some of the decisions in terms of the review of the standing orders. Now, of course, we shouldn't forget that the Constitution is the supreme law, and any other law that is inconsistent with it will be not denied, is inconsistent with the Constitution. That's Article 104. And that's the reason, and I'm happy about the argument that Professor Azar provides. And that should actually tell us the fact that there are disagreements over the interpretations of the standing orders and then of Article 104. And that is the same reason for which we should always go to the Supreme Court if there's that kind of argument.
But isn't it curious? Isn't it curious? Because these standing orders were basically lifted from the 1992 Constitution. Then maybe to stretch it further, we need to, and I know we've had the constitutional targeting is the 1992 Constitution, isn't it?
Yes, I remember Professor Mills set up a constitutional review. Is it a committee or commission? They did the work. We haven't heard anything. What happened? Was there a white paper? I don't know. So that process kick-started during President Mills' time. What have you been able to do? Over the years, you know, there are provisions in the Constitution that favor governments. So sometimes when people are in power, they are happy to work with the Constitution. Because it favors President, one person controls everything in this country. And therefore, if somebody is a president right now, they sort of happy. They are happy working with the Constitution. But when the table turns, then people will begin to raise issues about the Constitution and all that. Now, I think that we have to take a second look at this as a country, not as a political party, not as a government, but as a Constitution needs some revision, some review. And so, for me, it is about the willingness to do it. And we should begin to look at that so that we develop a constitution that will serve us better. You see, that is why we always review laws. Events come out. When we are making laws today, we may not be privy to or know exactly how things are going to pan out in the future. And things that will happen will let us know that we need to review the constitution. And I remember, you know, the UK has an unwritten constitution.
Right.
People to decide for them. And so it's one of those issues. You always have the means to review what is already there so that you can move on for it to reflect the current happenings.
Right.
I think that's what we should be doing.
Prof, I have to dispatch, so to speak, Dr. Draman. So just give me
no problem.
A minute or two, and then I'll wrap up in the next few minutes with you on a few more thoughts. Dr. Draman, so at this juncture is the way forward, whether the standing orders ought to be reviewed quickly, speedily, the Constitution itself from that Constitutional Review Commission. And Prof, you were asking, it is a commission. Of course, it was set up by the President himself. And all of that. What is the way forward for you in the short term? Because we need to address these challenges for the 8th Parliament to move on. Dr. Draman.
You know, let me just put on my, people do interpret it to say it's ignorance of the law. So I'm already putting that out there. For me, what I would have loved to see the Supreme Court do would have been to say, go back and go and take a second look at this, these standing orders of, dating back to the year 2000.
Right.
That is about 23 years old. Go back of revising it so that way, the two sides can come together and quickly work as we said, perhaps circumstances. We have to celebrate those circumstances that did not make it possible for the revision to be complete. Now is an opportunity, maybe for the two sides to go back and critically look at maybe the sections that are not clear. Maybe that would have made for more kind of bringing Parliament together at this moment,
right?
In the history of our country. Because I remember recently we were sitting in Parliament and looking at the new standing orders, and each order that we take the Constitution and try to see, is this in tandem? If it's going to.
It appears we have a bit of another situation there, tech situation. The feed may not be too good with Dr. Rashid Draman. I would have wanted him to wrap on that point, and then we move on. But if we get Dr. Draman back, we do that. If not, I'll just wrap with you, Professor Safo Kantanka. Do we have Dr. Draman back? All right, Prof. So in giving your summary comments to the way forward, I want you to integrate this into whatever you say as your parting shots. Professor Jampo has written that, of course, it appears, depending on where you lie on the political spectrum, you would either be elated or otherwise on the back of the Supreme Court's ruling. And he questions why all those on the side of the MPP are happy with it and all those on the side of the NDC are not. He says, however, it must be noted that per the doctrines of checks and balances as advocated by the French political thinker Baron de Montesquieu, the courts have the right to review and rule on the activities of both the executive and legislature, pointing to the bit about whether they are master of their own rules, that is Parliament. But Parliament is also a master of its own processes now as even more an independent arm of government. It can therefore decide to go by its own rules and work with its standing orders. But this, to my mind, shouldn't be the case, as it may amount to paying the judiciary back to debate if those expected to moderate it take to one side via partisan voting. This question must be answered taking cognizance of the fact that deputy speakers must not necessarily lose their right to represent their constituents simply by moderating debates. What is your reaction to that as you wrap up on this segment with us?
Yes, thank you. I agree largely with my colleague, Professor Jampo. And I think some parts of it I have already mentioned. I think that, you see, the Supreme Court is there for us to settle our disagreement. You may disagree with their decisions, but we have to live by them. That's a simple logic. And so, yes, the minority are against the decision, the majority are for it. At the end of the day, let's move forward. In terms of debate, the deputy speakers are not going to debate. They are not going to be part of the debate. When they are presiding, the only time that they have to be part of the decision making is when there is a vote to be taken. I think that is clear. So they are not going to take part in the debate. But when it is time for them to decide on something by voting, then they may vote. And I think even the voting, there are two types of votes that they have: the original voting right and the casting vote, right?
Exactly.
And I think it's about the original voting right. It's about the original voting right. So for me, there isn't much to debate about. We have to let this stand. Both sides, they should take advantage of this and build consensus.
Building that consensus is not going to be easy. As I sneak in this last bit, that'll be the final bit.
It's not going to be easy, but it can be done.
Right.
It can be done.
John Dramani Mahama, former President John Dramani Mahama has posted, he said, if deputy speakers, because they are members of parliament, can vote while presiding as speaker, they could as well be able to participate in any debate on the floor over which they are presiding. This is the absurdity into which the Supreme Court ruling leads us. You can end with your reaction to that.
I disagree with President Mahama.
Where exactly are your points of divergence?
He has brought in the absurdity. The decision of the Supreme Court is not about taking part in debate. That's a different ball game altogether. It's about voting.
They can do that, then they might as well be able to. He is saying that if you're saying they can vote, then why not just let them, debate as well? Yeah, because that's the point.
They might as well, and I get the
exactly.
So it's not a categorical statement. Yes, no, they can't take part in voting. We shouldn't go there at all. Let us take things bit by bit. Let's go by the decision that is so clear to all of us. For me, what I'm saying is that we should be thinking about how to move this country forward. Purpose that can take this country forward. if we have to try to pay back the Supreme Court, as Professor Jampo alludes to, it will not augur well for us. What do we have to do? That's why we are members of Parliament. We have a country of about 30 million people, and 275 of you have been selected to represent us to make laws. We count on your ability to decipher between what is good and what is bad, and that's why we've put you there. You are a special being right now, and so it's not about getting the opportunity to lead this country. Times will change, governments will come and go, but this country will continue to exist. We will continue to be there. But if we put the right measures in place, we put we make the right laws, the country will move on forever in peace. This is what we need. And for me, as I said earlier, I expect that the majority side will now extend a hand of consensus building to the minority, and the minority should be ready to accept that kind of gesture, so that they can sit down and discuss issues that will take us forward. I'm not happy about the way things have rationalized things and move this country forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Kwabena Safo-Kantanka, Research Fellow with Odikro, sharing his thoughts there. We also had Dr. Rashid Draman of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. On this all-important ruling of the Apex Court, we'll be getting the reasoning of the court likely today. But when we return, after we take a bit of a brief break, we'll be sharing with you reflections, if you like, on the life, the figure, the man, Elvis Koku, through the show, the AM show, on what he stood for. Do stay with us. We'll be back.
What I told God at the beginning of the year is that nobody under my watch should die. And I thank God that on the 23rd of December, everybody is...
What made Elvis successful is his interest in his people. Because the many discussions we've had has always not been about him. It's been about his people. Someone who will not come to management and make a request for himself. Every time is about one intern that he thinks is offering value. He must be regularized. It is about this particular guy who is devoting himself to the work, and he must be adequately remunerated. And they are happy. They will work and deliver for me. And that is one thing I will always...
And he was always concerned that in a big organization like this, there was always the danger of people being so consumed in the work that they forgot about the human side of things. So he would, how do we explore helping him? It wasn't part of the job.
Elvis was a very quiet, laid-back person, but he exhibited some traits, leadership traits. And so I was not surprised that, eventually he led the newsroom. One of those traits was his empathy for people. He was a very egos, and in managing, you need to have a big heart to manage egos. And I saw that thing, it came to him naturally, and I thought that his passion for the job coupled with this empathy that he was demonstrating, I thought was the right combination for anybody leading this newsroom.
Oh, Charlie. I miss you, wow.
So after Samama, he called me into his office one day and made it clear to me how proud he was about what I did. And it wasn't just words. Few days after I came to the newsroom, in my picture, there was a plaque of Latif in the newsroom. And for me, that was a pat in the back, and that has kept me going. He celebrated me. The Joy newsroom is made up of the best of the best. And for him to celebrate you, for me, it's more than winning a GJA awards. Being celebrated by no other than Elvis Koku Kwashi in the Joy newsroom, getting a plaque of you. It was a huge pat in the back for me, yeah.
Is the best leader that I think he's one of the best leaders I have met all my life. He's just a leader. This is why I say so. He's strict and he's sweet at the same time. So when things go right, this is a typical Elvis for you. Aisha Bebe, Aisha my cappuccino, Aisha my corona jab, and then
Elvis was definitely a leader and a father at the same time. He professionally would deal with you, but beyond the working relationship, he wanted something more. He wanted to know what was going on in your life, how you were growing as a person, and how your private life was doing, and you could confide in him. I remember that after some time working with him, I thought he was too tough, one thing over and over. So I sort of withdrew from him. But he noticed and he called me back and said, why are you avoiding me? And we had to talk things over, and the relationship changed from there.
Elvis will call, and before speaking about job-related matters with you, first checks on you, your family, and make sure you are okay. When you have even done something and you see his call, he will go on a milder tone, Kwejo, how are you? Then he will go like, I'm well, before he spills the beans on why he even called you. He's someone who checks on you and query you on why you don't call him or check on him. He will go like, Charlie, I'm always here. If there is anything worrying you and your team members, let me know and I will deal with it. I'd have loved to see Elvis retire, still serving as a coach to many. My colleagues and I in the regions would sorely miss him. We still know he still lives even though he's dead, and he would continue to mentor us in this journey.
Elvis is a stickler for doing the right thing. So, because he would tell you that if you do the right thing, if it means that I go to court to defend you, I would be behind you in court to defend you. So he would always tell you, make sure that your facts check out, because if they do, you don't have anything to be afraid of.
So Bullets sometimes go to his office to just encourage us. Apple, Shade, you did for us. He says, yeah, we will. And he always believed we will win. You know, now I'm thinking about, was there ever a time that you went to his office and he, you know, sometimes in our faces he'll take the bullets. They were meant for us, but because he is there, he takes them. Yeah.
He was the boss by name and by figure. All of us around respected him a lot because he lived. And he was that man who won't let you take his bag and carry it for him. I remember when I saw his car just then, he stopped around 5 meters and asked me to join him at the front. So when we got to the office and he got down, he had his bag. I decided to take his bag. I was new here, take his bag and take it to his office. He said, no, here we don't do that, right? So he won't let you carry his bag. He won't send you on petty errands. He was interested in how you could develop. So he was a different person, even from previous roles that we've been, some little internships you've done somewhere, where the team, he wasn't. He was around all the time. He would come into the newsroom when we were having reviews. He would be pacing around. Your opinion mattered as anyone else. It mattered just as an editor or anybody else. You could speak your mind, pitch your story, why you think this is something that JoyNews must go after.
Like I said a lot, it's just very difficult to, like I was saying, I just don't like thinking about.
There you have it. The man, Elvis Koku Kwashi, the real boss. We've known him like an onion. We've peeled different layers of him, but God has found it fitting to call him home. What can we do? What can we say? Reflections on the man and his life and what he stood for. We have some of our colleagues here in the multimedia group who are going to be sharing with us their fondest memories of him, what he stood for, and the mark he has left, not just in our work, but in our hearts. Richard Kwejunyako will be joining me, together with a few others, Irasta Sasare Donko, and some others. Richard.
Good morning, and thank you for having me.
Great. We are in transition, basically. We are saying goodbye to our own boss. I'll start with what your fondest memories are of Koku, Efo, as most of us called him. What are some of the things you remember him for the most?
Well, how he cares about the people he relates with, the people time he had joined the multimedia group to lead the group not long ago, but he still managed to travel all the way from wherever he was to Cape Coast to join me to celebrate that day. And for me, it was very good. Occasionally he will call you, Richard, how is your beautiful wife doing? How are the kids doing? And all of that. And for me, to get someone like him to extend some kind of relationship beyond the work, you always agree on one particular issue. But after that, you get back to the normal ways. And so I feel that we've lost a great person, someone who was an all-rounded person. He touches everyone. I mean, you may not be very cool with him today, but tomorrow you may do something and then he will send you a text.
Well, typical father figure. He smacks you with his right when need be, and with his left, he draws you back to himself. I mean, when something is not going well, he's not going to hide it and say, oh, let's cover up. He will tell you in the face. There are times he would send messages. I remember after one installment of the probe. He sends me a number of things and I respond to each discourse on it. Next thing, it's as though it didn't even happen. It didn't even happen.
Yes, and that was it. I remember one thing that happened in the region, and then it came to his attention. And even though he knew I was right, but because he wanted peace, said, Kwejo, you are a man, and that person you are dealing, please go back to the person and then rather apologize to the person. Even though I was right, he admitted that, Kwejo, you are right and all of that. But he was someone who was a peacemaker. So such is the person that we have not seen him again. But I still have the feeling that even though he's gone, we are saying goodbye to him this weekend. He's gone, but his spirit will always be with the multimedia group to mentor, to get the people along and all of that.
He may be gone, but is where he would get personal with your life. You know, sometime last year, I had a bit of a surgery, and all through, he would be trying to find out, hey, how are things now? Are you getting better? When the surgery was postponed, myself and all of that, he was that personal. It wasn't as though, oh, okay, and come back and all of that. When I had to move to Prime Morning, you know, the engagement, he was very personal, very straight up. And I like it when people are very, you know, direct like that. And that was whom he was. At the same time, that avuncular, uncle-like, father-like bit that he would weave in. And it was beautiful. We have indeed lost quite a gem. But let me...
And it's not that he's gone, he's not around that we are saying all of these. I remember the regions and we got it going. He made sure that he joined the Zoom. We had some frank conversation about how things are. And so when I was not hearing from him, I sent him a message. And that message, I'm sure that it never got read because he's always rebuked me, always doing so. And for your boss to constantly be interested in your affairs, not about work, but in how you are faring, I think we couldn't have bargained for a better person than Elvis.
Richard, just hold with me. How are you?
I'm good, by the grace of God.
We thank God. We thank God. You hold it down for us. But I can see even from your eyes that these next few days are not going to be easy, not for you and not for any one of us. But for you, when you recall the man Elvis Koku Kwashi, what comes to mind? What did he stand for with us?
Heart. And so it was quite surprising and shocking to hear, at least 2 weeks before his death, that he was all of a sudden bedridden and couldn't even speak. I called his phone a couple of times and his wife picked it up, said he can't speak. And it was shocking to me because if they tell you Elvis will even get fit every time, and he's the one who is inspiring you and urging you on all the time. Nothing brings him down. And there's not a problem you will tell him that he won't encourage you to move on. So that, fit person, he was so sick that he couldn't even talk to me. And this is somebody I looked up to. I called him a senior brother because I could tell him everything. And we spoke a lot. In fact, outside the job, he would call me, lengthy chat, long hours on various issues, And sometimes, as little as I am in this job, he will call me and be seeking advice from me on certain things. And it was so refreshing. Still in denial until maybe tomorrow when I see him.
And it is indeed, just sitting here doing this is a bit of an out-of-body experience. I mean, the very things you're speaking of he was saying to all of us. But how supportive was he? I remember, for example, I mean, there are a lot of things that you have done. Some of the things you do, the features, the stories, they expose things, and sometimes the reactions are not exactly the best. I recall, for example, the Ejura disturbances and the sort of flack you got.
He was the figure behind me, that tall pillar I could lean on. And he was the inspiration behind many of the stories I did. In fact, many of the ideas, he will bring them up and tell you, you can do it, and I want you to do it. Can you do it this way? Can we discuss it? At a point in time, he will call to find out where you've reached and how he can contribute to making it better and all that. And so in times like the dry incident, for example, he will ensure that, you get the needed support. And he kept on encouraging me that I'm behind you. You've not done anything wrong. Keep doing what you're doing. He will call my wife, talk to them, and he provided escape routes and other things for me. He will call every single, let this bring you down. Keep doing what you're doing to the end. And his voice rings in my ears almost every time. It's like he's still around, talking to me, because we're talking almost every day.
Life. But it's a route we all have to take. Let me bring in Nanaya Ojima. Hold for me, Erastus. Nanaya Ojima also joins us. Nanaya, watching.
Yeah, ni aben.
Na pome.
Wasn't ye, but in the intimate that.
Multimedia Group. There's no way, at least within the last 10 years, that you wouldn't have felt the influence of Elvis Koku Kwashi. For you, what are some of those things that, in terms of his influence, you will always keep with you? What mark did he leave on you as a journalist?
Elvis will push you to do things perfectly, and his emphasis on this word or how you use this word is strong. So you should go back and learn how to pronounce it or learn how to use it correctly. And he was so emphatic about those things. If you see, whenever I saw Elvis's call, the mood or how I received the call depends on how I did in my last report or what I've done on the ground. And if I think I've done very well, I receive his calls with some excitement. And you should expect Elvis's call anytime you do something good or bad. The last time I spoke to Elvis was after the National Science and Math Peace. I was part of the team that covered the Science and Math Peace. And he was full of praise to myself and other Elvis. And even after that, how he signed out was very nice. And it excited me within the period. But it's disturbing that few months afterwards for myself. And Koku will tell you how much Elvis spoke well about me. And it's really sad to know that Elvis is no more. Someone who is much interested in my development as a journalist is no more.
It is indeed a tough one that we have to deal with. But do hold for me, Nanaya. We also have Martha Kensel Aqua, who was formerly here with us. She's also... Right. And Martha, please unmute.
Good morning.
What I told God.
Good morning. Of course, Martha now is with Adum, having passed through the JoyNews bit. Martha, I can tell from the look on your face, all is not well. And it is same with Elvis Kokukwashi and what he meant, not just to the group, but to you personally, over the time that you worked with him.
So, there is this part that I have not shared before. And I've talked a lot about Elvis EL. So today I'll share that part. I mean, my husband and I. And I came to work one day and he called me in and asked of the situation, like updates. And when I gave him the update, he made calls and tried to resolve the matter for me. It's none of his business to want to resolve so many people. Elvis was a friend. Elvis didn't want to be seen as the manager, the boss. And that is why he's a real boss. Because he gets down to your level to work with you. And he knows how to make you ease into what you do. And when Elvis says, my eyes are on you, Elvis will not leave you until he's done. We are live. And then you'll be doing my eyes are on you. So everything you do, he's watching you. And when you are done, sometimes immediately you are done, if it goes well, he'll commend you and shout and make all the noise. If it doesn't go well, he'll give it to you there and then. When you get angry with him, you cannot sustain it. When you get angry with him, you cannot sustain it. Because he is going to get the anger out of you anyway. And that is Elvis. Elvis was I don't want to cry today. Elvis will be in our memories for so long. So long. Because he's left some impressions it will take forever to replace. Remember that last prayer he prayed when there were fears that people were dying at the multimedia group, somebody is going to die, something is going to happen in the newsroom. And he prayed that prayer that nobody under his watch from out there, and you don't know whether you are next because they have their own calculator, they have their own calendar, they know who's dying next. But Elvis prayed that prayer. I remember it was in one of the morning meetings, editorial meetings, and when he prayed, he gave some of us some assurance. When I left the JoyNews room to Adom office to visit him, but when you go to Elvis' office, you won't find Elvis. Elvis is on tour. He's from My Joy Online. He's going to Joy Business. He's going to Joy Sports. He's going to the Joy Newsroom. Elvis is always on tour, checking up on others. He actually came to the Adom newsroom several times. And when he enters, he will start making the noise about, I'm here to see Martha. Where are you? Where are you? He climbed all the way there to check on me. And that didn't give me the impression I left JoyNews because I never left. In between the last conversation we had, he said, Martha, I want you back. And I said, Efo, you know what to do to get me back. But you asked me to go. Then he said that one was a loan. It wasn't a permanent transfer. So I want you back. I said, Efo, do whatever you have to do, and I'll come back. And now we have out here, he's so alive in it. And you hear the words that he gives us every day. You hear the comments he passes on issues. So now when you're going to do something, you ask yourself, what will Elvis say? Will Elvis endorse this? Or Elvis will not? Because he's so alive in our hearts, so alive in our minds. The boss I have worked with, he's traveled. It's a matter of time, he will come back. You Martha, can call that denial, but it's not denial for me. That is how I deal with it, because he's still here with us.
He is still here with us, Martha. You're making me teary. Let's hear from someone else who, Whitney, will also join us right here. Manasseh Azuri Awene. And even before we get to Manasseh, it just got me reflecting, you know, the bit about Elvis and the impact he would, when I was cutting my teeth here,
at the beginning of
how
the
he
year
would
is that
he would come in
nobody under my watch should die.
and just guide me through everything. Let me say a very good morning to Manasseh Azuri Awene. Manasseh, thank you for joining. And I was sharing as well how when I came in, you know, from the start, fresh, how he would be on me, helping me to cut my teeth, so to speak. What would you always remember Koku for? What he stood for you personally? What
most impactful years of my life and in journalism? A lot of people know me in this country for investigative journalism, but I wasn't interviewed or employed at Joy's investigation. My first encounter with the multimedia group was with Elvis and Kofi Ansah, who was then the program director. And they said they wanted me to work there. We had a discussion, calling politicians and interviewing them and cutting sound bites. I was interested in developmental reporting, rural reporting, and all of that. So I never said, well, you all up for it. Then I joined in November 2012. We went for the elections, and immediately after the elections, somebody gave me a tip-off about some corruption. I discussed with Elvis, and he gave me the go-ahead and the support to go and pursue that story. Up until then, I hadn't done investigative reporting. I hadn't learned. I did my first degree and master's before joining Joy. But in both first degree and master's, I never, for once, studied investigative reporting in the journalism schools I attended. So it was learning on the job. And Elvis obviously guided me. There were times he came out better than it would have been if there weren't those guidance. I am still the side that if I have evidence to call somebody a thief, I wouldn't use any other word but a thief. Elvis would say, Manasseh, what you are saying is not wrong, but for ABC reasons, why don't you do this instead? So I would say that beyond what I know, beyond what I have achieved, beyond what my byline tells, Elvis was actually behind the scenes supporting. I must also say that this brand of journalism wasn't very popular at Joy. At the time, I want journalists not to come to work or go out there to be doing their own thing. Elvis was one of the few people who understood the need for investigative reporting, supported me, and he was somebody who was open to suggestions. I remember I came to him one day and said, well, there is this guy at TV Africa who, for me, is very good. Why don't we get him to come and join me to make the move? Not long afterwards, Kwetenatu was with us. DW Academy organized a training for some journalists, and said Kwame Boateng and I were those from the multimedia group who attended.
Right.
When we came back from that meeting, we went to Elvis and said, oh, Elvis, when we attended a training at DW, I think it was held at Paloma, we met this guy, very intelligent, at City, Raymond Aqua. It won't be bad to have Raymond on the team.
It appears we've lost Manasseh, but quite a picture. I never even knew that. Without Elvis, he wouldn't even have ventured into this. Bernice.
Hi.
The last time I saw you, you were so... Quick reflection on the life of Elvis and what he meant to you personally.
Whew.
So do this within some 40 seconds to a minute if you can.
Sure, I can. I mean, Elvis was special. Elvis was a friend. Elvis was a great leader and a boss. And I think that what I'll remember, I'm not sure I can tell the story of how I joined multimedia in 40 seconds, but just to make it brief, I had a call. I had done my national service there, and I had left to, not my national service, sorry, internship, and I'd gone to do my national service as a teaching assistant at GIJ. And I was done with my national service, and I was hoping to go back to school. So I was at home when I received a call that, oh, there's a new boss around here. He'd like to meet you. And I met him because, at that time we were not converged. So I was doing my internship with TV, and I had crossed over to radio to do something. There was this man it was after the midday news, and you know how it goes. When you do a review. I was like, hey, why is this guy so strict? And what's happening here? It looked like, you were in a court or something. And, so I didn't have a relationship with him. And I was like, I'm not sure I can work with this guy. He's too strict. But he's not here. And I always say, oh, this is not what we planned. That's not what we planned. This shouldn't be it. There were so many projects, so many things, and I haven't been at work. So,
Bernice, thank you for sharing. Let's also have Rafiq Salam from WA. Rafiq, thank you for joining the conversation. Rafiq Salam, if you can give us just about some 40 seconds to a minute of your thoughts, your reflections on Koku, what would they be?
I'm not quite sure what I can do it in 40 seconds because Elvis is somebody who is very special. And then also I wish that I had him. Ever since that we lost Elvis, I've also lost my voice. I remember I used to do like say 60, 70 stories a month. But since we lost Elvis, that motivation is no more. I was counting the number of stories that I did at the last month, which was about 5, 6 stories. And for me, Elvis is a pillar. He used to call me the top striker. And so there are times that he used to call me and tell me, if my top striker is not performing, I'm worried. Rafiq, you have to do a story for me to hear your wow. And so Elvis is somebody who motivates me. Elvis is a pillar, and Elvis is the real boss. I will surely miss him.
Thank you, Rafiq, and all of us shall as well. Thank you for staying with us on the AM show this morning. Don't you forget, tomorrow at State House, we bid him farewell. He'll be taken to his hometown, Asadame in the Volta region, where he will be interred. And on Sunday, the 13th of March, at the Church of Pentecost English Assembly, Matayeko, at 8 a.m., we shall have the Thanksgiving. My name is Benjamin Akapo. We still continue to celebrate Elvis Koku Kwashi. Do have a good day.